Donald Trump went into enemy territory this weekend for an interview on NBC's Meet the Press with Kristen Welker. And as you're about to see, the questions that she asked were ridiculously biased and unfair. But Trump masterfully shut her down in these key moments that I'm about to show you. Welker tries to corner him as a vaccine conspiracy theorist and over why he refuses to concede the 2020 election. Trump is so good here, and he then finishes with just straight up destroying Welker and the mainstream media at large. I'm Zach Costello, and this is the Zach Costello Show.
Let me ask you about RFK Jr. He has obviously talked about his skepticism of vaccines. He's expressed opposition to childhood vaccines. Do you want to see childhood vaccines eliminated?
If they're dangerous for the children. Look.
So possibly?
When you look at some of the problems, when you look at what's going on with disease and sickness in our country, something's wrong.
Are you talking about autism?
Well, if you take a look at autism, you go back 25 years, autism was almost non-existent. It was, 1 out of 100,000. And now it's close to 1 out of 100.
Well,
I mean, what's
studies
happening?
show that there is no link between vaccines and autism. And yet it sounds like you are open to the possibility of him looking
I'm
at
open to
getting
anything.
rid of them.
I think somebody has to find out. If you go back 25 years ago, you had very little autism. Now you have it. I mean,
well, they say because they're better at identifying it.
1 in 100,000, and now it's 1 in 100. That's a pretty bad number.
Childhood vaccines.
I mean, something is going on. I don't know if it's vaccines. Maybe it's chlorine in the water, right? People are looking at a lot of different things.
Childhood vaccines.
I want them to look at everything.
Everything. So childhood vaccines have prevented about 4 million deaths around the world every year.
I think that's great. I'm all for it. I think it's great. Hey, look, I'm not against vaccines. The polio vaccine is the greatest thing. If somebody told me get rid of the polio vaccine, they're going to have to work real hard to convince me. I think certain vaccines are incredible. But maybe some aren't. And if they aren't, we have to find out. But when you talk about autism, because it was brought up, and you look at the amount we have today versus 20 or 25 years ago, it's pretty scary.
Well, again, scientists say that's because they've gotten better at identifying it, and there's no link in studies.
Why is there this mindset on the left and in the media to just take everything that the medical experts say as gospel and refuse to scientifically examine the consequences? What Trump says here is right on. Something is wrong, and we need to find out what it is. This shouldn't be a partisan issue. We need to ask ourselves why the mainstream media continues to ostracize and attack those, like RFK Jr. especially, who want to dig deeper on these health issues. It's a problem. And now, watch what Welker does here as she tries to blame Trump for the divisiveness in this country right now, and listen to what she recommends as a solution.
Sir, I don't have to tell you this because you've talked about it. It comes at a time when the country is deeply divided. And now you're going to be leading this country for the next 4 years. For the sake of unifying this country, will you concede the 2020 election and turn the page on that chapter?
No. No. Why would I do that? But let me just tell you, when you say the country is deeply divided, I'm not the president. Joe Biden's the president.
But you're going to be the president.
No. I'm not the president. So when you say it's deeply divided, I agree. But Biden's the president. I'm not. And he has been a divider. And you know where he divided it more than anything else, and it probably backfired on him, I think definitely, is weaponization. When he weaponized the Justice Department and he went after his political opponent, me. He went after his political opponent violently because he knew he couldn't beat him. And I think it really was a bad thing. And it really divided our country.
Sir, Democrats have control of the White House now. They didn't in 2020. If they are going around stealing elections, why
when you
didn't
say
they do it
Democrats
this
have
time?
Control now
Of the White House.
Yeah.
So why didn't they steal this election? Since they have more power now.
Because I think it was too big to rig.
So you won't.
Too big to rig.
I have been saying this over and over again, but we cannot let the Democrats and the media off the hook here. And it is huge that Trump held the line on this. He says, too big to rig. It was too big to manipulate, but they still tried to manipulate it. In 2020, they censored social media companies. They changed voter laws, and media coverage was unfair. In 2024, Kamala Harris got 84% positive coverage from ABC, CBS, and NBC. Trump got 89% negative. They revived Kamala Harris, who was a historically unpopular vice president, into a viable presidential candidate who got over 74 million votes. But you know what else? The vote count still isn't over. And not surprisingly, Trump's margin of victory is narrowing as these late votes still get counted even months later. There is more work that needs to be done to ensure that our elections are fair. This election was too big to rig, but future elections won't be. And finally, I'm really glad that Trump put the nail in the coffin here. Watch.
And the reason is because I'm able to go on a show, even like yours, even though you're very hostile, I'm able to go on a show like yours. No, you are.
Well, hopefully you thought it was a fair interview. We covered a lot of policy ground.
It's fair only in that you allowed me to say what I say. But, the answers, the questions are, pretty nasty. But look, because I've seen you interview other people like Biden. And
I've never interviewed President Biden, actually.
When I say you, I'm talking metaphorically. I've seen George Stephanopoulos interview Biden. And he's a tough interviewer. It's the softest interview. I've seen CNN interview him. They give these soft, what's your favorite ice cream? It's a whole different deal. I don't understand why. You would think the press would like to see strong borders, great education, a powerful military, so we have a country left, and all these different things. And somehow they don't want to see that.
There it is. You would think the press would want to see America and the American people thriving, but somehow they don't want to see that. And we have to ask ourselves why. Trump, once again, exposes the press. I'm Zach Costello, and this is The Zach Costello Show.